Hello and welcome to another episode of Panasonic's Beyond Entertainment podcast. I'm here today with Jeff Ravencraft of USB Implementers Forum and Jinyu Mao of HP, from HP. She's the Senior Director of Product Planning for Laptops. Thank you for joining us at the show.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, pleasure.
Jeff, let's start with you. Let's talk about USB Implementers Forum. What is the Implementers Forum? What does your team do?
The USB, and we abbreviate it USBIF. It's a nonprofit. It's a standards industry group. In the old days, they would call it a SIG, Standards Industry Group. And the USBIF is really focused on, we're a support organization and a forum for the advancement of USB technology, as defined in the USB specs. Our main areas of focus for the USBIF, one is compliance and certification testing of products. And if the products pass our test and they have a logo license with us, then they can use our logo on their product packaging. And then so we do that. We do education to the technical industry with our developer conferences and industry type events. We do our own marketing of our brands, of our logos. And obviously, we also go out to the industry, the car industry, the airplane industry, the PC industry, right? And everywhere we can, as new things come up, we're kind of the technology evangelist for USB.
There are a lot of smaller USB revisions, several years ago where we went mini, micro.
Right,
There's bits next to it.
Yeah. And again, as you're evolving over time, it'd be great if we had this crystal ball, right? And we go, 20 years from now, we need something small that's structurally strong, that will support very thin phones, very thin tablets, very thin laptops, or whatever, right? The problem is you're not there yet, and you really can't see it, right? It kind of comes in stages. It's a function of what the industry wants at that given point in time, and then it's a function of design. But thank God we got to Type-C, right?
Do we see a slowdown now in that evolution? Now we've got to this nice reversible, very strong, very sturdy connector that's been so widely adopted.
Yeah, I would agree, or I do think that we're going to see a slowdown. We think Type-C has an extended life. Now, again, you don't have the crystal ball, right? HP or Apple or somebody comes out, there's some new thing, and that may force a change. But based upon what we see in front of us in the short term, and I'm talking about 5 years, maybe 8 years, right? We think Type-C has some longevity and headroom in it. So anyway, I just wanted to comment that we do a lot of hard work to make sure the key industries understand the technology and are making the transition, right?
It's certainly gotten to that reversible phase. I think I had 100% failure rate of putting the USB in, correct?
Yeah, and I still get that all the time. The reversibility. Also, in the old days, you had a standard A on one end and you had a standard B on the other end.
Right.
And that determined who was the host and who was the device. And obviously Type-C, it doesn't matter. Both ends are the same. And it doesn't matter which end you plug into a host or a device. And it's reversible. And it's just a great connector, right?
Jinyu, HP with the premium notepads, how have you guys adopted with USB, and how does that thought process go into your product evolution?
Yeah, so, we've been a lot focusing the thin and light devices for the travelers, the mobile, users, right? And design is actually one of our biggest aesthetic, advantage relatively to the industry adopted, devices. And USB-C is really revolutionary because it helps us to get into the thinnest form factor while still allow the users to be able to connect to their peripherals and being charged comfortably because, the A and the HDMI still carry that thickness. So when we're designing, we're really considering, USB-C as one of the biggest advantage to advance, the design elements of the products. But then the secondary is that if you think about, hybrid work, we talk a lot about, right? Before the pandemic, nobody has, thought about, we probably have to be stabilized at home a little bit. Now, like out of the COVID, everybody wants to work basically from everywhere, right? Like us, we were here this week. One of the key challenges when you work from everywhere is that you have all things that you have to pack together, like the adapter for chargings, the external peripherals, and therefore USB-C also helping us to get into the number of connectivity on the devices in a very thin and light profile, which is brilliant for our user to have that seamless experiences as well. Yeah,
we've also seen a lot of the other connectors. We talked about HDMI, some audio connectors. That's now all being replaced by USB on many notepads now.
Right.
Is that into the design process to kind of universally go down to this universal connector?
Yeah, so like our premium laptops, like Envy, Spectres, we've now actually driving more like standard 2 to 3 USB-Cs because of the technology allow it to be, audio, video output to be able to charge. And therefore, we definitely see that trend is moving forward, starting from the premium side.
If I could comment as well.
Please.
So we're all, we're fellow travelers, right? We all deal with a lot of the same issues. But I think Jinyu is correct. But there's also, when you look at the install base of HDMI, they're really in the TV display, and they're the incumbent there, right? And I don't see that changing. But I think here, my laptop has an HDMI connector on it, which limits now the size of this laptop by height. Yeah. So I think there's some opportunity there. And the other thing I wanted to mention was with the USB 4. Now again, we're
breaking
talking,
your own rule, Jeff.
because but USB 4, the spec allows us to tunnel DisplayPort to drive displays over USB. It also allows us to drive PCI Express over USB, as well as all the USB 3. All the past USB, right?
With data.
And it's backward compatible and power. And so you now get a one USB host can support all of those technologies, right? And we can deliver up to 120 gigabit per second data rate, say, to a high performance display.
Incredible.
And HDMI can't do that today. I love the HDMI guys, but we're the fastest data rate and in the industry today for a consumer I/O, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of a consumer, this means less cables to carry.
Absolutely.
Because now, the cell phone, the tablet, the laptop, and potentially even, TVs and displays in the future, we can all work off this one connector type.
Yeah, and also, all the peripherals you carry. Jeff was super right, is that how many times now you get a mixture of cables. You end up, for example, I was traveling to Europe, you landed and it's like, crap, I didn't get the right cable because it's a USB-A versus C or HDMI. That's a nightmare. So standardizing to a single interfaces, you carry less cable, but also, you have a more seamless experience for sure. Yeah.
We touched on power just briefly, Jinyu, particularly with laptops there.
Yeah.
We at Panasonic Avionics have a lot of focus on power and providing power to the customers, particularly DC power. What has the evolution of power been in the laptops? We picked 67 watts, to each customer going to 100. What are you seeing on the laptop side these days?
Yeah, so with the evolution, right, out of the pandemic, more and more users actually, like us, hybrid work, you will use like Teams and Zoom's collaboration tools. So in general, we're seeing that there is a high demand of computer performance, and also users are demanding about longer battery life, and therefore we have to keep up the design of the laptops to be thin and light, but also deliver longer battery life and also fast charging. So what we're seeing is that we're gonna keep the 65 watt to 100 watt range of the power, but in the meanwhile we're innovating into the cell technology of the battery to be able to not increase the size, but to providing decent and more battery life out of the similar wattage of the battery cell. Yeah.
That's excellent. And Jeff, what does that power difference mean in terms of the USB specification and performance?
Yeah, and I'm so glad to hear Jinyu talk about this power efficiency, right? Because it's not just about sucking more power. And when I first started in USB, we called devices that you connected, we called them power-sucking devices. They drain the power. And none of us liked power-sucking. Now we love power, right? But again, it's a change. But I was glad to hear Jinyu talk to efficiency, right? Because it's not necessarily about more power. It's about reducing the amount of power the chipset uses, or all of these things inside here are taking power. And so as the manufacturer like HP gets more efficient with batteries and extending the life of the battery so the consumer doesn't have to recharge as soon, is great. And I think where we're at on power, today we can deliver up to an OEM can deliver up to 240 watts of power.
Wow, that's incredible
over USB Type-C. And that kind of power can run your refrigerator at home, right? So I think the areas, the wattage that and power that Jinyu is speaking of, I think is great. And obviously we can support that, right? We think we were originally at 100. And again, we listened to the industry, and they need more power. So we went to 240 watts, and we were able to do it with the same connector.
That same small connector that plugs into your cell phone.
Yes. And so we can support it. We think 240 is a sweet spot. I mean, if you have a gaming notebook or desktop, they're going to suck a lot more power. It just is. But I think for laptops, notebooks, tablets, phones, we think 240 watts is more than enough with some headroom. If we ever wanted to go above 240 watts, that will likely force a connector change.
But today the laptops are between 65 and 100.
Yeah, exactly. But gaming laptops requires more, like Jeff talked about. Okay. But some of the discrete graphic-driven laptops will require more, like than 100 watts. But general thin and light laptops will be sufficient with 65, 68, like you talked about. Yeah.
And fast charging you talked about. What is fast charging?
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, right? What does it mean, fast charging? It's like I go through the meeting rooms, throughout the day. You just need that burst of power, like 5 minutes, right? So we've been actually standardized our premium laptop for charging to 50% in 30 minutes, which
50% charge in 30 minutes.
Yeah, in 30 minutes. That's standard promise. And where we would like to go in moving forward is to be able to claim something like, like in 10 minutes or 5 minutes, let's say, give you a burst of power that you can sustain the next hour of meetings to make it more user-friendly and relatable for users users, because all what they want to know is, if I get this 5 minutes, I can have like a coffee or, a lunch thing. Can I actually help me to get into the next hour of meeting, right? So that I'm not embarrassed. I have to present something in the middle and then you don't have a power plug in the meeting room, something like that. So
we coined the phrase in aviation, charging anxiety.
Exactly.
When you get on the airplane and all your tickets are on your cell phone.
Right.
And if that plane doesn't have charging capability, then you don't want to turn your phone off.
No,
because you might miss out on something important, but you don't want to run out of battery.
Right, exactly. And sometimes, the power plug is not necessarily always working, or if you are getting seats behind, you might not get the provide of the power. So absolutely, yeah. I actually, like on my flight going to Europe, I only had 5% left on my laptop. I thought I could be charging on the airplane.
I'm getting anxious just hearing that number.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Jeff, do you see more devices in the future moving to, USB charging or, throughout the house? I mean, you're now starting to see home sockets with USB built into them. I think all my surge protectors have, A's and C's now.
Yep. Now we're seeing USB Type-C in power drills and power tools. We're seeing them in toothbrushes, electric toothbrushes. You see them at home, right? And so in Europe, Europe is now legislated and mandated that all portable battery-powered devices starting this year have to charge over USB Type-C and power delivery. The connector's just one piece, right? You have to have the power delivery silicon and implementation to get the power. The connector and cable, they're just the conduit. So the EU now has legislated it. And I think laptops and notebooks have until 2026. But the rest of the industry, come January 2025, it's going to be like a hard stop. And that, I think, the USPIF does not support legislating technology of any kind. It's just bad. Because a government legislates it to the spec, to a revision of a spec, and then you're locked.
From an innovation perspective.
Yeah.
When it changes, the government can't move fast enough. And that whole marketplace is locked into old technology. So while we don't support it, we're glad they picked USB Type-C and power delivery. And so that's going to have an effect globally on adoption, as we've seen with Apple on the iPhone. But Type-C I went to the EU, and I still communicate with the European Commission. I just did email exchange with them yesterday. That is going to move the adoption even higher, right? But I told them, this train left the station. You don't need to pass a law. Other than Apple, it already happened. It happened a long time ago. But they went ahead and passed the law.
They did it anyway.
But so I think not only with higher power, that drives adoption, because now Type-C can support many, many other types of products, right? And so that and what's happening with legislation, and it's not just the EU. Brazil is looking at legislating it. India, there's 1.5 billion people. They're the most populous country in the world now, right? Korea. And so it's really having a cascading effect around the globe.
Do we think then this is going to accelerate some of that movement because Type A is still a predominant used connector? Is that what we heard?
It's one of the predominant connectors, yeah.
Do you think that's going to accelerate towards Type-C, or do you see some roadmap of movement from one to this universal?
Well, again, Jinyu might be better to answer, because I should clarify, the USB-IF, we don't make any products or sell any products. And so our crystal ball is only as good as what we get back from our speaking with our clients, our colleagues. But I think you have two things happening. The install base already in homes and vehicles and for standard A is huge.
Yeah.
It's billions, 30, 40 billion or more products.
It's amazing.
And so I think, number one, that drives companies and airlines and HP to look at and go, you know what? We probably should have a standard A on there.
People with headphones and headsets or old devices.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
They still ship sometimes with the A to C converters.
Right.
I think we're in the transition period. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we normally, like the top premium, we go 100% USB-C. But in like the commercial spaces, for example, we still carry 1A at least. It's just because, for example, enterprise has VPN type of security external devices. There's still majority on A. And then the plan to C is slowly, moving forward, and therefore we provide that as an alternative and option on the devices, with the promise that maybe in 3-5 years down the road it will move into USB-C, completely. But the other thing is, like Jeff talked about, I've been, traveling around the world, and I get different rental car. When you get different rental car, your first impression, okay, which cable should I carry? Because some cars have C, some cars still have A, right? So we are in the transition period because the user doesn't understand.
And you're using your device often as satellite navigation, right?
Right,
and
exactly. And a CarPlay, all these type of applications. And then therefore, just because it's unpredictable as a user when you go into different scenarios like car, then you would prefer to have that backup plan so that you are not left out, Yeah.
So we're in this transitional phase.
Yes.
At this time, the consumers are going to be going through this.
Yeah.
Within a few years, we believe they'll solidify probably on C. C's probably going to be there for a while because governments have now said that this is...
Yeah.
And also look at the peripherals, right? In the past, like your earbuds, it only comes with an A dongle for the Bluetooth connection. And now we actually also come with a C as an alternative. So as monitors, right? In the past, you get DisplayPort or HDMI as a cable drop in the box. Now we have to provide a C type of cables as well. So as long as the OEMs giving users more promising their roadmap support of the C, and then it will drive more adoption into that, and then drive more applications and all those other devices to build in Type-C as a default. Yeah.
Where we have Type-C charging on the laptops, I've seen quite a few laptop companies now, they provide the power brick, and then it has a disconnect, like a Type-C to Type-C cable. Right. Some of them still have like the C goes directly to the power brick. How does HP deal with this?
Yeah, so, we would been talking about, traveling is a pain because you carry a lot of things, right? So we've actually trying to advocate that the entire ecosystem of the backpack that you travel with should be lightweight. Okay. So as an effort, we are looking at how to transition from the power brick that people having with the long cable today into a type of technology called GaN adapter.
GaN FETs,
yes, exactly. So we know that our competitors, some of them already have that. And then it's just simpler. You have less cables. You can plug into the USB-C one end and then go into the direct charging.
That disconnect.
Yes, exactly. So all the premium laptops that we're going to have from the consumer and commercial side will have that option.
That's great, because I certainly travel with a multi... I have a very lightweight 100-watt, but it's got multi-output, so I can put my laptop and my cell phone and my iPad all off of one, and it's much more convenient.
Exactly.
For the consumer.
And super light, right? So, yeah.
So, Jeff, how does this automotive industry look to you from a USB-IF perspective? How are they working with you guys?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I really appreciate Jinyu's comments about the car. Again, as I said earlier, we are evangelists for USB. And prior to the pandemic, we regularly were going to start again. But I personally go with our CTO, our Chief Technology Officer. we go to Europe and we call on Porsche, obviously Audi, Volkswagen, they're all related, but BMW and Benz, right? We go to Detroit and we call on GM and Chrysler and Ford. We go to Japan and we talk, Japan has a huge car consortium. And then we also go to Korea and meet with Hyundai and Kia. Now, I don't know how many people in the U.S. know it's one company. It's, they're two different brands, but it's like GM in Korea, Hyundai, Kia. And we go there. And again, we know the transition time for cars is about 5 years. And I think they're realizing they need to speed up the transitions. But because of the length of time, we've gone out and we educate them and show them the numbers and adoption rates to get them to deploy Type C in the car. And a lot of them already had Type A. Some of them didn't even have Type A.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And so it's that type of work that I'm mainly focused. I run the company, but I'm focused on evangelism and more on the marketing side for branding and those types of issues, trademarking. So, but anyway, whether it's cars or computers or phones, that's a big role in what we do with the industry. And we have anywhere from 900 to 1,000 member companies. And it's the who's who of all types of industries. And Panasonic is a member, right? And HP obviously is a member. HP is one of our board members as well. So,
well, Jinyu, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today. Great conversation about the future of USB, the past of USB, HP and their plans for laptops. Really want to thank you for joining us at Panasonic Avionics. And want to thank our listeners again for watching our podcasts. And please like, comment, and subscribe, and join us on the next exciting episode of Beyond Entertainment.